but that even if you do get married, if you don't have a life that you love now, you're going to join your life with someone and you still really won't be, because a person doesn't make you happy.
Like, oh my goodness, can I ever get it right? And I get choked up in those moments, because those are the moments that tell me that God is doing what he said he was going to do. The shirt actually says hungry. It's Proverbs 13:4, which says a sluggard's appetite is never filled, but the desires of the diligent are fully satisfied. Everybody's out here just trying to live a life that is meaningful, that they can, kind of connect to, that still allows them to feel alive. When we are listening to you speak, we can tell that you have spent time with the Lord. As I prepare to enter into this place of hopefully marriage, I want a heads up. As a single person, are finding a sense of wholeness where you are already. I do try to invite the Lord in so that whatever it is he's doing, he can do it.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. How are you? Thank you for joining. This is take 2 because I forgot to hit go live. So we can do that again. Welcome. We're just going to give you a chance to come in here, and we look forward to you joining in the conversation. I'm excited about what we're going to talk about tonight, really diving into some of those challenges that we face as single women. And even though this channel is targeted toward women of faith, I believe that at least a lot of the challenges that I know that I'm going to bring to the table, those are really faced by probably all single women. And so we welcome all, and you don't have to be single or a woman to join us, but we're happy to have you here. And I have a special guest with me that I will introduce formally, or allow her to introduce herself formally in a little while. But we just want to give you all a chance to jump on. Please get in the comments. We want to just say hi, and we thank you for joining us. Renee, how are you?
I'm very good. Very good. I'm anticipating our conversation today.
As am I. So it's been a busy day, exciting day for episode 2. And just to really, the thing that I like about the conversation that we're going to have tonight is that it really taps into some of the issues that I believe that faith communities are really have a real deficit in addressing. And so I'm excited about that, because part of what I want a single mission to be about is helping faith communities to think differently about the single people in their church, to value them, and to have more holistic and directed ministries for them. Not just kind of have social stuff and like, oh, you all go hang out there with the singles, but to really be intentional about how they minister to single people inside the church, but even outside of the church, because I think it can draw a lot of people. So looking forward to it. If you are here, just say hi to us so we know you're here, and we will go ahead and get started. So good evening again. My name is Lorraine Edwards. I am the co-founder of A Single Mission, a business ministry started to help single women of faith deal with the unique fears, challenges, and loneliness of being single in family-focused faith communities. And so today, the reason that this conversation is even happening is because I was thinking about the fact that that is, part of the mission of this company. And I know that there are unique fears, challenges, and loneliness, but I never have really written them down or outlined what they were. And so I was thinking about something last week, and I started thinking about that. And I said, I need to put that down on paper. And I started writing and writing and writing some more. And I realized, it's not just something I felt or thought, it's something that I know. And so I'm excited about that. So for those who are here, we're going to ask a question. If you are single, or if it hasn't been so long that you were single, that you can answer this question in the chat. Let's put it up here for you so you can see it. The check-in question for today is put in the chat one challenging thing and one great thing about being a single woman. Renee, you can answer too. You don't have to give away your good answers that we're going to save for the discussion, but.
I think I'll wait.
Okay.
I think I'll wait. Yeah, because we're going to get into all of this, so.
Okay. Let's see what we got. Hi, Tracy.
Hi, Tracy.
Well, Tracy is married, so this question doesn't apply to her, and she's been married for a minute, so.
Tracy has been single.
She has?
Yeah, so I'm sure she's aware of some of the challenges and the great things about being single versus, married life now. And that's actually one thing that I like about, these seminars and having the singles and married people together, because married people have not always been married. And so they have they can look at it from a comparative view, some of the things that were challenges in their singleness, what does that look like now that you're married, now that you are in that, lifelong relationship. So they are in a different position to give us great advice and insight into what it looks like before and after singleness.
I totally agree. That's why this program is called Live, Love, and Marry Wizerr. And our co-host is married, so that we can have that balance of knowledge and experience. So Tracy says one great thing is freedom. It's funny. We did a challenge a few months, I think in November or December. And one of the questions that I asked, this was only for single women. And one of the questions I asked is, what is a great thing? Similar here. What is a great thing about being single? And literally every single person said the freedom. So obviously this is something that is real and that even married people recognize and think, hey, yeah, that's pretty cool. Our challenge, if you just joined us, is to our check-in. If you can remember, if you are single or you can remember, what is one challenging thing and one great thing about being single? That's what we're going to talk about today. So we'll share our answers in a few minutes as we get started here. Okay. Here's our co-host hating on the single women. Kind of jealous. I've heard that before, but we have our own jealousy of you all. So it's a love thing. That it's not a bad jealousy, but we get it. Hey. All right. So just a couple of things here. If you have a question, if you can put it in the chat with some question marks on both sides, just so it stands out more for us. As more people join, the chat can go pretty quickly. And so we want to be able to catch those questions. And I'm going to let's talk about our topic for today. So we're talking about the fears, challenges, and loneliness of being a single woman. And if you saw the ad on or the promotion on, Instagram or Facebook, I did mention that we're not going to leave you hanging with just the bad stuff. We are going to talk about the good things or how to deal with those fears, challenges, and loneliness, things that we've done ourselves. And so we want to leave with some hope and some tools and some joy. So right now, to introduce, I'm just going to say her name, and then she's going to share a little bit about herself for you. One of my good friends, one of my great friends, actually, Renee Warren. We've known each other for about 22, 23 years, and we have liked each other that whole time. And so we've had many great times together, and she is actually one of my best friends. So there's a lot of pictures of us all over the place. And so I'm going to let her, I'm the single one. She's the other single one. And she's going to share a little bit about herself now.
Okay, so hi, my name is Renee Warren. Again, a longtime friend of Lorraine, and I'm glad she put that number on it because I never remember what that is. But nonetheless, longtime friend of longtime friend of Lorraine, and I am a huge supporter of what Lorraine is doing in having this ministry geared toward single people. In our friendship, I've expressed so many frustrations about the singles ministry programs that I've, been in attendance for so long. And to me, my opinion of them is that they were narrowly focused. And Lorraine actually has broadened the scope of the conversation with information that I believe that single people need to hear and they need to know. So that's why I am willing, with my introverted, shy self, to come on here and have this conversation with Lorraine and with whomever, may be joining us. I think it's really important. I am older than what I want to say I am. And I say that simply because the information that I'm learning now, that I'm getting now, I wish that I had gotten 20 plus years ago to prepare, for marriage, which is something that I desire. So this singleness journey has been just that. It has been a journey full of highs, lows, ups, downs. I have learned a lot over the course of the years. And I've also learned that there are a lot of things that I need to unlearn as I prepare for, hopefully, that gift of marriage, which I hope will come one day. So, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate you said yes so quickly. And I'm excited to have another conversation with you in front of a whole bunch of people. So we're just going to break it down. We say fears, challenges, and loneliness. And so that's how we're going to break it down. So we're going to start with fears. What is one of the unique fears that you have, Renee, as a single woman living in this world?
That is so funny. I wish you had not thrown in the word unique, because my first one actually is not unique.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, so the first fear that came to mind when I'm thinking about the singleness journey for myself and other people that I've spoken to is that fear of growing old alone. That's common, right? We hear that all the time. But that is a fear that has, to a degree, has dwindled over the course of time, right? When I was young, or younger, I thought that that was one of the worst things, one of the saddest things in the world, especially like with me starting my working, career as a CNA, working in nursing homes or going into the homes of the elderly and disabled. And you learn that they don't have family, they don't have kids, nobody comes by to visit. And it's just like, oh my goodness, that's so sad. And I don't want to be like that. Well, I've since learned through life, growth, development, experiences, exposure to people and things, that's really not the worst thing in the world. And even as I think about it, I think that I personally am trying to reframe that thought, because one thing that I was thinking as I was preparing for this is that, like, imagine being an older person who has lived their life, meaning they have engaged with their friends, they have done things that have brought them joy, they have provided services to people, you know what I mean? And then, your family and friends, everybody's busy. My friends are going to be growing old with me, you know what I mean? So when I'm older, maybe everybody can't get to me, right? So when that CNA walks in the room and they're like, oh, Miss Renee, nobody comes to visit. Well, maybe I'm not in the worst place ever if I am in a position to reflect back on the life that I lived.
All right.
You know what I mean? So while it doesn't appear to them that much is going on with me, I could literally be getting these dopamine boosts and shots on a regular basis, thinking about your smile that I see right there, hearing the laughter of my friends. My mom has the best laugh in the world. To hear, choked up, my grandmother's voice. You know what I mean? Like, I may be sitting in that room with a mind and a heart that is absolutely full. So I'm saying growing old and not necessarily having people around is not the worst thing in the world to me anymore.
Wow.
Yeah. So again, that kind of comes and goes. And I appreciate, girl, I said that I did not want to cry on this thing. I'm just a crier and that's what I do. So
I don't know why you just don't accept that. We have all accepted it and we love it. It just means that you are
so
in touch with your emotions.
So we're just a few minutes in. Come on. Anyway, but I mean that it just makes that thing so much better. Like to reframe it and see it that way, because number one, there's no purpose in worrying about that now because there's no telling what it'll be like then.
Right.
Leave the worry alone and enjoy today. Right. So that's one of the common fears that I think a lot of single people have, myself included. I actually wanted to share a quote from Robin Williams, which takes me to my next fear. Robin Williams said, I used to think that the worst thing in the world was to end up alone. It's not. The worst thing in life is to end up with people who make you feel alone.
Mercy.
Right? When I read that, I was like, whoo, that is not good.
It's not good.
The thought of being surrounded by people, yet feeling as if there is no one there at all. That is just the thought of that just kind of breaks my heart a little bit. But that's why I think that it's so important for us to surround ourselves with people who do feed our spirit, feed our soul, who gives us those dopamine hits, which I just mentioned a while ago. And actually, I learned that really from you, about the power of friendship and positive interactions with other people, to include your family. You may have that at work and things like that. We're talking about the dopamine hormones and neurotransmitters that run through us, and they boost our minds, our hearts, our body, just everything, right? And I was thinking the other day, I was like, is that why dope is called dope? Because it gives you that boost. So so right here, I'm thinking dope is dope because it gives you the boost. But if you're talking about substances, they're going to give you a temporary boost that are going to take you way high, and they're going to slam you down really hard.
Right.
But when we're talking about the dopamine boosts of our friendships, feeding your heart, your mind, your soul, your body, your everything, that is one of the things that is helping me, you know, with the thought of aging alone. You know what I mean? That dopamine boost that comes from your friendships is going to feed me throughout the course of my life, whether you guys are in my presence or not. You know what I mean? So anyway,
that's awesome.
With that being said,
Renee, can I jump in for a second?
Yeah, of course.
I just wanted to comment on what you said, because I think that's awesome. That is a fantastic reframe, because that's not, I wasn't going to talk about that fear, but I do have it, especially as I get older and I'm with, you know, my mother, and technically she can live on her own, but there are some things that she can't do. She's 88 and all that. And so I'm there and I get to be there, but I don't have a child. So you're a single mother, I'm a single person, and I don't have a child. So I have started thinking about like that. If something happens to me, if my mother's gone and something happens to me, what is going to happen to me? But I've thought about it more from that perspective of maybe getting to a place where there are those things that I can't do for myself. But the way that you reframed it, it makes me not think about it in the way of just like being alone, because I appreciate what you said about kind of being around people who make you feel loved and desired now, because my relationships are so beautiful and deep that I don't feel alone now, even though I'm single. It's rare, like, of course, and we're going to talk about loneliness, later, but I feel like I'm with you all, even though I'm far away. Not only am I single, I don't even live where you all live anymore. So when I get to see you, which seems to be a lot because we're always on screen together now, but like in person, but like we talked about, those happy hormones that can hit you off. Just, they say even thinking about being with your friends, or thinking about a laugh that you had, or thinking about, and sometimes I'll reflect on some of the text messages that we send. And so when you framed it from the perspective of like, your life is full, just someone's not in the room with you at 88, I just think that's beautiful. So thank you for sharing that. So
absolutely. And like just a few minutes ago, you talked about how many pictures that we have of each other together. That's the same thing. I mean, that's why they say with senior citizens, give them photo albums and let them see, their lives and stuff like that. So, one of the other fears, which again, we're talking about the Robin Williams quote, right? What's worse than, growing old alone is being around people and feeling alone. I missed one of my good friend's birthday party. It was 10 years ago, although it feels like yesterday, and she still gives me a hard time as if it was yesterday. But I missed it because I didn't want to go, alone, because I knew I was going to be, I thought that I was going to be in a room full of people feeling like I was there all by myself, because there are going to be a lot of married couples there. And, some of the other people have closer relationships with her than I do, whatever. I made this whole story up in my mind, right? So one of the fears is just going through life without having a partner. You know, I think on the outside, one of the beautiful things about being married is that you have a perma date. You know, do you want to go to the movies? You don't want to go by yourself. You ask your husband. You want to go out to eat. You want to go on vacation. You want to, you know, all of that. Your friends are not free. You ask your spouse. You know, also the fear is not having a partner when it comes to things like buying a home, creating a family, creating memories and traditions, you know, like holiday traditions and stuff like that. Like, oh, dad always and mom always, all that kind of stuff. Excuse my tongue. But anyway, a partner when it comes to dealing with, you know, your finances, having that in-home support. You know, one of the fears is that, and this was interesting, even when I was writing it, I was like, whoa, like, do I really feel this way? And obviously I'm writing it, so I do. A fear that I'll always have to be a strong, independent woman.
Yeah. Can I jump on that bandwagon for a second? Because one of my fears is, which I didn't put that down, but it's like having to have your own back all the time. Like even with great friends and great family or whatever, at the end of the day, when you're making decisions or when something happens, you always have to have your own back. And, you know, I believe in, you know, being independent women and all that stuff, but I also believe that we need men. Like I'm not on that bandwagon. Like I don't need no man and blah, blah. No, I do. Right. I mean, obviously God is, you know, he supplies a lot of what we need, but he's not around here like picking up heavy stuff and move, you know, like all of those things. And that we say, oh, there's not man stuff and woman stuff. There's just stuff. And we all know that there's certain things that men tend to do and there are things that women tend to do. Now, it doesn't mean it doesn't overlap and all of that. But, you know, for me, having to make those decisions and have my own back and figure things out all the time. I'm Googling, and I like Google and I love YouTube, obviously, but have to go every time to try to figure out those things that are not like naturally from things that I am interested in, but now I have to be interested in because I have a problem and I have to fix it. And there's no one who has my back on that. So.
Yeah. I mean, just like a couple of years ago, I was in a car accident. And I didn't have anybody who was running to make sure I was okay.
Yep.
You know, it was literally, and I think I may get choked up now, but it literally was only God who sent Carly McClatchy to be on the scene right there at that moment. He literally, when the accident occurred, he pulled his truck over, didn't even know it was me.
Wow.
And he ran to see if the people were okay. Wow. I literally had to do like one of those things like in the cartoons where you're like, is that like, is that you? And he's running across the street. He was the one who was, you know, there to make sure I was okay, to see us all through the whole situation. And he took me home.
Wow.
He called me, checked on me, make sure I was okay. If he wasn't there, I would have had to figure it out by myself. There was nobody who was, there was no sense of urgency for anybody to run, check and see about me.
Right.
And that's one of the difficult things about, it's one of the challenges about being unmarried and not having that person there who has got your back immediately, you know, without you having to ask and, you know, all of that. So,
no, that's good. And can I jump in and say that this seems silly, but when you're in the situation, it's not like there's like two things. I told Anisha, she's one of our friends, and she's the pastor's wife from the church that I used to be a part of. And I told her, like, one of the suckiest parts of being single is trying to pick out glasses. Like, you already can't see. So now you go and they say, put on the frames. And so now you're in the mirror like this, trying to see, but you can't because that's why you need glasses. And so she's like, I'm gonna go with you. And she did. And she went with me the next time I had to. But like simple stuff like that. But then also like going to the airport. Like, oh my goodness. Like trying to figure out, and I like to fly early. So now you got to ask someone to get up at 3:00 in the morning to take you to the airport for 5. It's just like, you just want to have a husband who's like, dude, you're taking me to the airport. Like that's your job.
You know, and that's good. That is good. And that is something that we desire, right? But I want the husband to, I would like the husband to say, oh, honey, you have to be to the airport. I'll get you there.
Oh, of course. Like
I'll see you off, as opposed to me necessarily having to ask for everything.
I agree. I'm saying like in the vows, you're taking me to the air. Like when you say love, honor, cherish, take her to the airport. Like that's the thing, you know?
Right.
Like those are those automatic things. Now, Ebony has a comment that I'm going to put up here that I think is pretty interesting too. Partnership is cultivated. It's not automatic when you get married. And I agree with that. Which is why we need to live, love, and marry wiser. So that we can start to so that both people are on the same page of what the partnership is even going to look like. But yes, that's absolutely true. We see that, you know, quite often.
But okay. And I agree with this 1,000%. And I wish that we could pull her in so we could talk to her. But when we're talking about partnership is cultivated, it's cultivated by two people who have a partnership mindset, I'm assuming, you know what I mean? Who want to get on the same page, you know, who may come in with different thoughts and ideas, but then some kind of way we have to figure out how to merge. I'm single, never been married. Ebony has to tell me, you know, if that's how that works, but that's good information. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should have sent her an invite so she could get it. We can bring her in. I could send her one right now if she's free.
Yeah.
What you got next?
Okay. So as far as fears, and this is a real one. I've been in relationships and had some experiences, and one of my fears is taking bad habits or toxic traits that I have seen in myself into a new relationship. That is so frightening to me. Because definitely that's something that I don't want to do. You know, there's that saying about if you don't, I'm going to butcher this completely, but like if you don't heal your wounds, you'll bleed on people who didn't cut you or something. And even though I feel like I am doing work to, you know, kind of nurse some of the scars and wounds and to address some of the things that have come about over the years. Because for the longest time, Lorraine, you've heard me say, like, I prayed the prayer, Lord, show me me. And there, you know, and this is when I'm 100% single outside of a relationship. Lord, show me me. And every now and again, I'm like, okay, maybe this is what he's showing me. I'll work on this. Maybe this, and I'll work on this. But then when you get into a relationship, my Lord, the things that you see that you never thought were there or possible, or there are some things that resurface. You know, things that you thought that you had dealt with. And I'm like, I am good on that. I don't have anger management issues anymore. And I don't this and I don't that. And then you get into a relationship and you're interacting with another person. There are things that emerge that can completely catch you off guard. Like, I didn't even know that I could feel anger like this again or at all. Or I've never been jealous before, and now I feel jealous and I'm acting out of jealousy. I'm scared. I don't want to get into another relationship and do that because that's so unhealthy. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's a fear that I have, and I'm interested in what your thoughts on that.
Well, no, I agree with that. And I do feel like, you know, I hear a lot of times that people will say, or pastors generally, not just random people, but pastors will say that marriage is not for happiness, but for holiness. And I don't necessarily agree that it's not for happiness too, because I believe that holiness is happiness. Now, the process to get to holiness is not always that joyful, believe me. But I do believe that those two things are meant to coincide. And so when you are by yourself, you can think that you're in a different place of holiness and you really are.
Right.
Because that person starts, rubbing against those areas that no one was touching before.
Right.
And it can be anywhere from the minor to the major. Now, some things you just never have to deal with if you're not married. And so they will only come up in that situation. So now it's a new thing that God is needing to show you and work through you. But there are some other things that you do, because it's very easy to be selfish if you are single and not know that you're selfish if you're single, because there's no one else to account for. When you decide to do something and you do it, you're not offending anyone because there's no one to offend. And so there are things that we can see in ourselves, but we can still see it. Just because there's not another person, God, the Holy Spirit will certainly be like, yo, what's up with that? But if we are not paying attention, we're not looking, we're not asking God to get rid of that stuff, then we're definitely gonna bring it into a marriage, and it's not gonna be pretty. So that is something. Go ahead.
Yeah. I feel like I want to interject some of the not necessary solutions, but ways that we can address some of these things right here or whatever. And I'm speaking from, my own personal experience. It's like I was telling you, Lorraine, I didn't want to Google the issues of single people, right? I literally wanted to just kind of look back over my own life and draw from my own experiences, right? So when I'm talking about being fearful of taking toxic traits that I have noticed are possible, because I'm not saying that they are me, you know what I mean? I'm not taking those on like literally as my personality, my character and all of that. And if I should, feel free to let me know if I need to be more accountable in that area. But nonetheless, I've noticed some things, right? There have been some things that have taken place that have caught me off guard, and I did not handle them well. So one thing is seeking wise counsel, talking to, married people who are in, because the whole purpose of dating is with the idea and that I'm going to get married, that this is going to lead to marriage, right? So if I'm having an issue in the dating relationship, I want to talk to married people and say, hey, what is your take on this? And the beautiful thing is that everybody doesn't have the same take. I can receive, the information and then, hope, pray that God will allow me to decipher what it is that I need for me in my relationship. And if not for this relationship, for my future relationship. Right. So definitely seeking wise counsel when it comes to that, but also, and it's really comforting though, when you're talking to other people, because they will tell you you're not alone. You know what I mean? Like what you're going through is not uncommon, because just like Ebony was saying, partnership is cultivated. So is just outright the relationship itself. In order for that thing to be healthy. I mean, obviously two healthy people who know how to communicate and interact with each other, and you like each other, you have common interests and stuff like that. It makes it a little bit easier But again, you're talking about two different people with different thoughts, ideas, and all that kind of stuff. So there's going to be some moments where you're not quite on the same page.
Right.
But anyway, taking in wise counsel and kind of deciphering what is best for you in your situation. And also therapy. I am a major advocate for therapy. And I didn't write it down. So that's why I wanted to interject it here, because I don't want to forget to say that.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah, I'm a major advocate for that, because the Lord has allowed for certain tools to be available to us. And I think that's one of them, for us to go and, talk to someone who is not going to take sides. They don't even know, you personally. So they're able to hear you and hear things as you're talking, they can hear what you're not saying.
Right.
They can help to guide you toward possible resolutions that give you new ideas and ways to think about certain things. Just like we're talking about the reframing of getting old alone, they can help with things like that. Because if you're going to one that is seasoned, who's been in their field for a minute, spoken to people with different experiences and backgrounds and whatnot, they're going to have some strategies. They're going to have something to offer you to help you to go forward. In that. But also, communing with God is therapeutic as well, because he'll do the same exact thing in a completely different way. So anyway, I just wanted to add that in there, but that is something that I have thought about. I think, even in the friend group, I may have mentioned that before. Like, I didn't know that these things could happen, that these kind of traits would emerge. And now I'm afraid that I will take those. I think I may have said to you all, I don't know. Wait a minute. How do I know that I won't do that again? How do I know that I won't have that same experience? Mm-hmm. And one thing that you guys said was that you're not going to be dating or marrying the same person. You know what I mean? So you're not going to have the same issues, and hopefully you won't have any issues at all, or they'll be minimal, or whatever the case may be. But
I think that, I realize that if something comes out in me because of an interaction with somebody, that thing is in me.
Right.
That's right. They didn't create it. They just exposed it.
Right. I agree.
How they are. And so even though I'm like, well, I don't want to spend my life with that person if they bring that out in me, but now I have to take the time to address that in me, so that then I don't take that to someone else, like you were saying.
Yeah.
And so there are people who can bring different things out in us, just like in any relationship or friendships. There are friends that you have, even y'all could be the best of friends, like the four of us, Tracy's here, Ebony, you, but there are still different relationships that I have with you than I have with Ebony, that I have with Tracy, even though they're all good. So because different people trigger different things. Now we also just silly together and all that. But so in that relationship, having that person, like seeing that in you and recognizing that they didn't create that in you. They just exposed it. And so you're okay, that's there. Let me go to Jesus and the therapist or coach or whatever, or somebody. Right. And some people can, well, we can't do anything without Jesus. Some people can look at themselves and say, okay, I need to take steps to address this character flaw. Let me do that. Ooh. But, I'm a social worker. I am a coach, and I'm a great advocate for therapy and coaching and certainly the Holy Spirit. But then the other thing that you talked about was seeking wise counsel. And, one of you had mentioned in the other discussion we have about the session that I do on flags. And one of the courses that I created is about flags. And the first section is about accountability and actually having a dating accountability partner. Now we will try to lose weight and we'll have an accountability. We'll try to stop, AA and NA and all of those are about accountability. But then we will make the second most, I believe, choosing Jesus as your savior or rejecting him as your savior is the most important decision you'll ever make. But the second most important decision you ever make is who you will marry. And we will make that decision in a vacuum, in a hole, in a corner. And we won't tell nobody, or we'll sneak around. All of that, when someone's trying to stop drinking, they have a whole group of people around them and sponsor and all of this. So we associate accountability with something bad you're trying to stop doing. And that's why many people don't ask other people when they're dating, because they know that most of their friends will be like, nah, bruh, nah, sis, if you don't know that joker like today. And so we are like, nah. But I teach accountability first. Before you even start dating, identify someone or 2 or 3 people. One is good if they're a strong person and will tell you what you need to hear. Identify that and say, I need you to be my accountability partner for my dating life. And that person needs to be godly and praying and straightforward and kind and compassionate and not judgmental, because everyone's going to have, no one's going to be perfect that you bring to them, but there's some people who are way, way less than perfect. And so we need to have some detours, and we need to trust. And I'm going to tell you a story about that. I told you time would go like this, but we're at 7:03. But I'm going to tell you a story. I was dating this guy, and on the outside, everything looked good. He was an evangelist, God, praying and reaching people for Jesus and all this stuff. And so I was introduced to him by a friend and seemed to hit it off. We had great conversation, all of that. So we started dating, and he was the devil in a suit. And it turns out that 2 of our other friends actually knew him. Now, he didn't live in the same place, so they didn't know I was dating him at first, but then they found out. But they didn't tell me, and they knew he was a devil in a suit, but they didn't tell me, or at least one of Satan's minions, they didn't tell me because they thought I would be offended and that I would be mad at them and that I would, reject that counsel. And the reason for that is because many people do that when you try to tell them. And so, eventually, I found out, some things happened and I broke up with him, and then I was telling them about it, and they were like, whoo, we're so happy that you did, because he had dated XYZ, and he was like, and I was just like, why did y'all tell me? They were like, well, sorry, we didn't. I'm like, look, I don't care. I'll tell all of you all, and you know this, if you all know, or if you see something, you tell me, because I trust that you all have my best interest at heart, and that you're not going to tell me to do something or end something for any reason other than my best good. So I'm all about accountability. You'll carry that mindset and expectation for yourself into marriage and see, okay, yeah, love it. So yes, I love that point that you made.
Yeah. And I feel like I want to backtrack right now when I said that I didn't want to claim those traits as my own. You're talking about being accountable, and you're also talking, and I was talking about, people who are in unhealthy relationships, talking about myself. Anyway, you're right. There is a level of accountability that comes with that, because in order to be in an unhealthy relationship, it's unhealthy on both sides. Because even if I think that I am the bill of health and I am staying in an unhealthy relationship, there is a problem in that already.
Come on, you preaching now.
Right? There's already an issue in that needs to be addressed. So I don't want to go any further into that because
no.
accountability hurts sometimes.
I want to share a couple of my challenges that may be kind of unexpected. I know we don't have a lot of time, but one of mine is that one of my fears is, or used to be, is pursuing big dreams without a husband. Even this, the company, whatever, because for so many years, people, women that were my friends that cared about me would tell me that I intimidate men because I'm so capable and I handle my business and my life and whatever. And because of that, I lived small for a long time. And it was really, and if you haven't heard a little, on episode 1, I shared a little bit of how a single mission even came to be. But I realized even in that time frame that God was leading me and has led me since then into in a big way. But I was living small because I was always afraid that, well, no guy is going to like me because, I'm not helpless and needy, which is kind of the impression that I was given. I'm sure that's not exactly what they meant, but that's what you hear because they're like, well, because you don't need them. Well, I always say, I mean, if the groceries got to get up to the apartment, who else? I don't have anyone to carry them. I got to do that. Like, I know that's a simple thing, but the reality is if you're living life and things have to get done, they have to get done, and you either do them or figure out how to do them. And the way that I have counteracted that mindset now, because I totally, whatever, I don't even care about that anymore, is by saying any man that is intimidated by my capability is not the man that God has sent for me.
That's right.
And I own that. And I am totally like, forget them. They need to go find somebody else because I'm not their woman. One of the challenges that I talked about is that when we were talking about like making every decision on your own, we still live in a patriarchal society. And I remember the first time I bought a car on my own, and I don't know anything about cars other than I like how that one looks. And I'd like it to drive and not just sitting in the parking lot looking good. So the first time I did, I asked some friends and who are not women, and that didn't really work out. And so I ended up making a dumb decision. Now, the Holy Spirit is always leading us too. And I made a dumb decision completely, and that turned into a disaster. But the last time I bought a car, I had Tracy's husband came with me, and then Tracy's husband's cousin came. And when I actually purchased the car, and they had been looking with me, and I was like, I'm not making this decision on my own because I don't know anything about it. And also, when you go to car places, they treat you differently as a woman than they do men, even in the negotiations. And that's a reality. So it's a challenge for me to do some of those things because there's a reality that we live with. And if you're not as adept at certain topics, then you struggle, especially those areas that are man stuff, You were going to say something?
No, I was actually just kind of feeling what you were saying or whatever, as far as like going out, trying to do those type of things. It's always good to have, somebody there someone there who is more knowledgeable in those areas. And, you know, for us being single women, it is nice. The thought is nice for that person to be your husband,
Right.
to accompany you and take you through those, you know, assist you through those processes.
Mm-hmm. And just talking about loneliness, you had mentioned before about not having a partner to go out with, a partner to make decisions with, a partner to hang out with, a partner in just everything. But I also think about the fact that, you know, as we talking in the faith community, single women, it's been my experience, and I'll speak for me, and you can chime in if it applies. Single women are less embraced in the church family than single men. Single men get invited to dinner, they get invited here because someone's always trying to hook them up or whatever. They, you know, take care of them. But single women are kept, in many respects, at arm's length by married women. A lot of married, not all, because obviously our best friends are married, but by many married women, because, and you know, no one necessarily has said this, but you understand, they feel like, oh, you're trying to mess with my man. And certainly there have been situations where that has occurred. I'm not saying just be wild and fancy free with your husband or your partner, but also recognize someone's sincerity and the fact that, you know, we don't want to be isolated and dismissed and on the outskirts of church life either, or just there to, you know, teach Sabbath school and do the work of the church. And then, you know, we don't want to, because I can tell you, Renee, I spent 20 years in Richmond, and I can count probably on two hands the number of people who have invited me to their home for dinner or anything. In that, they love me at church, but the number of people, now those people who have invited me, I've been to their house a lot, but the number of people that have invited me, no, it's very low.
Mm-hmm.
And that,
you know, I relate. Yeah, I definitely understand that. And that is actually something that, you know, I've spoken on before, but it definitely became a challenge with your, you know, in your singleness, because some of the people who are not inviting or extending those invitations now are people, because I've been in the church so long, they are people that I was close with at one point. You know, and it was nice and it was cool to invite me when I was young and cute. But now, you know, when I grow up and, you know, people, you know, think that I'm, you know, a beautiful lady or whatever, it changes from me being, you know, the young teenage girl or the young girl in the church to now, I don't know, possibly being a threat or something. I'm not really sure like what their thought is, but all I know is that there was a massive shift. All of those invitations to people's homes that I was frequenting on a regular basis were cut. That just was not happening anymore. And literally, even for me, and I'm telling you, like as a single person, you have to check yourself so often, because it got to the point where it was just like, I don't even really want to go to church because I don't feel I don't feel comfortable, you know, around a lot of people. And it's just like, okay, Renee, no, you're not going for the people. You're going for the Lord. You're going to, you know, be fed so that you can go out and feed throughout the week or whatever the case may be. You know what I mean? Like I have to keep checking myself and, you know, getting myself back in order to make sure that my mind is right. And I'm not, you know, running the risk of losing my salvation behind people.
Right.
You know,
and then another way I would say I don't know if you have experienced it, but for me, I had to check myself from the perspective of like kind of tempering my interactions or even my personality. Because I'm very like touchy, not in an inappropriate way, but I'll talk to you but like when I'm around certain men or whatever, I have to like kind of make sure that I'm, you know, staying on the straight and narrow so that no one thinks anything.
Yeah. So you're not misinterpreted.
Exactly. And so that can become very stifling. And so, I mean, I appreciate the relationships that I do have with the married women that I have, because they have been very genuine and I don't have those issues, but it's still a very narrow, that's a very short list. And so, yeah. Anything else on loneliness?
I mean, I don't have anything else to add until we start getting into, ways that we deal with those things.
Go ahead.
When we're talking about, loneliness, that's something that comes and goes. It's just a reality of life, right? Because loneliness is totally different than being alone.
Right.
And being in your own space and enjoying your own company. But loneliness does creep up.
And how do you deal with those moments when it creeps up, those times when it creeps up? Or some of the ways, probably more than
well, sometimes I'll just talk to myself like, ooh, I'm feeling some kind of way. Let me get up and go do something. Let me go read a book or, turn on a movie or do something just to, number one, take my mind off of the loneliness, because there's no good in sitting around thinking, ooh, I'm lonely.
Right.
So I just go find something to do, cook a meal, do something creative, read a book, watch TV, call a friend, go out and do something fun or whatever. So I just kind of reroute the thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. And I try to create a life that is very enjoyable or focused on the things that matter to me, so that those times of loneliness really have shrunk from where they're not non-existent, and I don't expect them to be, but they have shrunk from when I was like in my 20s and 30s. Like I thought about it all the time, like I was constantly thinking about it. I had, good friendships and stuff, but that kind of partnership and relationship is obviously different. And so when I kind of came to myself in a sense, and God was like, I have something for you. And so focusing on my purpose and the work that I want to do and the impact that I want to make has really alleviated a lot of that. It will never alleviate all of it, but it has alleviated a lot of that. And so, yeah, that's been good. And as far as like dealing with the challenges and stuff, I think that for me, I do Google a lot, and that's just a reality. Some of it's pretty fun. You find out some interesting things.
Right.
Ghosts really have teeth. Haven't looked that up yet, but that's a joke. But
what did you say?
I said, do ghosts have teeth? But it's one of those 3 a.m. searches that you do, or how tall is Jesus? But I do Google a lot in order to figure things out. I've done little things on my car because I Googled it and figured out, I could do that. And so I actually feel accomplished when I do things like that. And it makes me realize that, everything doesn't have to be a powerhouse strength. You can just learn how to do something for this one time and then keep it moving. And it's funny because yesterday, my mother went out with her friends. That was kind of cool. And they were sitting in the car talking for a long time. And I was like, okay, how about like, this reminds me of some people I know. Like we get to our destination and we just sit there and talk. And then the lady's car didn't start when she was trying to leave. And she asked this guy next door if he could jump her car. And he's not a young guy. And he didn't know how to jump the car. He said he would help her. I mean, he had a car, but he also didn't even know how to keep his own hood open. And she had to show him how to do that. And so the reality is that a lot of guys, even though we think some things are guy things, a lot of guys don't know how to do that stuff either. So they also have to Google it. So that reality, it is like, okay, well, this is just part of life. So that's just one of the things that I do to, you know, and then the other part about making decisions on my own, I try to, you know, get counsel for that. But there's some decisions that you have to make just because God told you to make them, and you have to just trust that. And the other things, you talk to people who might know more and get counsel. So
Absolutely. We're talking about things that we do to kind of battle all of the things that we talked about, the loneliness, the fears, the challenges, and all of that. Number one, top of my list is but actually what really should be at the top of my list is go to God. Because it's everybody may not believe it right off the bat. But he will talk to you. He will tell you what you need to know. And if you open that word, it's so funny because he actually, this morning, I got up to do my devotion and I went to go, you know, continue reading Revelation. But my Bible opened up to 1 Corinthians. No, it's not. It was 1 John chapter 4 and chapter 5, where he was talking about love. And I was like, Lord, I needed that today. Thank you so much. You know what I mean? I mean, talking about not only, you know, God is love, but, you know, the more that you love me, you know, I will fill you with my love. And this is the confidence that you have that you can ask anything in my name according to my will. And I got you. There was just so much in there
there's a lot in there.
Yeah, there was just so much in there. And I was like, Lord, thank you for that today. Because I needed that. Because sometimes we need to be reminded about this concept of love. You know what I mean? That it is reciprocal. He said, you love me. He didn't say, I'll love you if you love me back, but I love you already. You know what I mean? And I'll fill you with it the more you come on to me, you know, whatever. So anyway, so I really enjoyed that. But not only that, I mean, the word says so many things. Like I'm talking about being in a toxic, unhealthy relationship. And you're just like, oh my goodness, Lord, what in the world is going on? Make it stop. There are things in me that I'm seeing that definitely need to be healed. That's why I'm talking about going to therapy and stuff like that. And I love that you reminded me that I need to be accountable for me and my part. Because if I'm afraid I'm going to take it forward, that means I need to check me, period. No matter what else is involved, I need to check me. And 2 Chronicles 7:14, which I will read if I have the time. Then my people who are called by my name will humble themselves if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sins and restore their land. The thing that makes me laugh about this is that I've heard the scripture so many times, and that's the right way to say it. I've heard it. And I've sang a song about it. Who sings that song? Not Daryl Coley, but
I think it is Daryl Coley.
Okay. Amazing song. If you get a chance, listen to it. But when we read it, we talk about if my people will humble themselves and pray and I'll heal the land, right? I skipped over a major part. Thank God for COVID-19 that had me in the house, you know, with a desire to read my Bible. Because when I read it again, it says, humble yourself and pray, but also turn from your wicked ways. And so today I was thinking of like a little silly example to illustrate this right here, right?
Okay.
How much time do we have, by the way?
Not much.
Let me tell you my quick example about water balloon fights.
Okay.
Right? So I love water balloon fights. Every time I go out, I'm getting in water balloon fights everywhere, which means that I'm constantly drenched, right? My clothes are drenched continuously. So I'm like, Lord, I'm just tired of being drenched. Can you please just dry my shirt? You know, just dry it. And so the Lord is like, and I read the scripture which says, humble myself and pray. So that's my prayer. Lord, please dry my shirt. And then time goes on and I'm like, why is my shirt not getting dry? Right? I skipped the part where he said, turn from your wicked ways. If you don't turn from them with water balloons, your shirt is never going to be dry. But then listen to this.
Mm-hmm.
If I stop doing the water balloons and my shirt dries, if I didn't read it right, and if I don't really think about it, I will say, well, my shirt dried because I turned away from the water balloons.
Mm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's say your shirt dried because of a process or whatever of evaporation, the wind is blowing and all of these things, right? So my shirt is drying and I'm thinking, Lord, where are you? You didn't do anything. Didn't he make that error? Didn't he create the process?
When he
did what he said he was going to do, but you had to do your part. And then I was thinking, like, when I do my part, I'm not doing it for him. He can snap his fingers and dry my shirt. Mm-hmm. I'm not turning away from my wicked ways for him. I'm doing it for me.
Right.
So that I can receive what is already there. That air and that evaporation process was already in existence.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, God's word is so amazing. So again, for my hard times, Renee, what can you do? Is there something that you need to turn away from to make this aspect or this point in your life better? Right. And I'm like, okay, Lord, I hear you. And I've been hearing. Mm-hmm. And the more, we feed ourselves with this type of information, the change may not occur instantly. Mm-hmm. But you better believe his word will not come back void. Like, it's going in and it's germinating. And when the time is right, you'll see, the fruit, the blossom that comes from it. So anyway, reading his word is just so amazing. Romans 8:28, all of this, the singleness, the struggles, the trials, the fears, the challenges, the moments of loneliness, and all of that later at some point, we're going to see how all of that comes together for our good. It's just so exciting, to kind of go there and see these type of messages, and how they really apply to us. Love thy neighbor as thyself. We hear that all the time, but we skip over the as thyself part. So in your singleness, you got to learn how to love yourself. And I have one more scripture that jumps out at me as it pertains to this, right?
Go for it.
The last one that I think of, I don't know why. Okay. Know me. I started crying and now I'm ending crying. But the last one is this, and you can tell me your thoughts on this, right? The Bible says, he who finds a wife finds a good thing and finds favor with the Lord. The last part is my absolute favorite part. You find a wife, you find favor with God. That is so exciting. You know what I mean? But I heard somebody say this, and I'm not mad at the thought. A man finds a wife. He doesn't find a girl with the potential to be a wife, right? So you talk to a lot of men who have, a lot of married men, and you'll say, oh, well, how did you know she was the one, right? Well, he will say, I observed her here and there and there and here, and I realized she was my wife. Right? And so until I receive more information that leads me in another direction, I'm feeling the fact that I'm a wife. Like, I'm not a long-term girlfriend. I'm not a live-in, shack-up girlfriend. I'm not that. I'm a wife. I'm just not a person's wife yet, right? So in that particular role that I have for myself, I mean, if anything, like people say, well, I'm married to Jesus. I have to get myself together, period. Like in your seminars, and like Tracy, told me a long time ago, when we're looking at relationships, we want to have an idea of what we want somebody to bring to the table for us, but we also have to, kind of get a hold on what it is that we want to bring to the table as well. What type of wife do we want to be? There are some things that we're not going to learn until we actually get into a relationship, but I still can talk to the Lord about patience. You know what I mean? Lord, help me to be patient. And I don't have to be in a relationship with a husband to work on that. Lord, I got to go to work. Right. I got to deal with my family. help me in all these ways.
Yes.
To be the wife that I'm going to be in the relationship.
Yes. No, I'm totally with you. And that's why the meantime is good time, because in that time period before we become a wife, we should be becoming a wife. Before we become someone's wife, we should be becoming a wife. And even when I did a seminar called the ROI of sexual purity. And I was talking about the fact that when you are sexually intimate with someone who is not your spouse, you're actually committing adultery, because you're sexually intimate with someone who's someone else's spouse.
Right.
That person can be someone else's wife or husband, and you're causing them to be unfaithful to their future.
Right.
And so, yes, we should be becoming, I don't know if you've read or listened to Michelle Obama's book, Becoming, and it's fantastic. But I did a blog post about becoming the person that you would want to be married to. The one that you are looking for is looking for. So if you met your ideal spouse, would they be looking at you as their ideal spouse, And so I think that even though it does get hard, and you see things, and we know, of course, we've learned that what we see is not always what it is in the behind the scenes. But the reality is, God is the author of a marriage, and marriage is beautiful as God created it. So even if other people are doing it wrong, marriage is beautiful how God created it. And I think that's what we desire. And so we should be beautiful as God created us. We should be becoming the Eve, not the part where she ate the fruit and messed our whole life up, but before that,
right.
And then he should be becoming Adam. And I should have had a link for this, but there was a great message that I listened to this morning about at Oakwood University Church. They're doing a On the Verge series, and the topic was on the verge of finding the one. And she was saying that you should be preparing for a destiny husband or wife. And she's like, what's a destiny wife? A destiny wife is someone that makes it easier for you to serve God in the way that God purposed you to serve him. That makes it easier for you to do the thing that God has called you to do, who cheers you on and who points out God's gifts in you, even when you don't see them. And so to become that kind of person, we have to be connected to the one who created us, because then we can see Christ in them. We can see, we care about them. We are walking with Christ, and we want them to walk with Christ. And so I loved it. And I should have had the link. Of course, I just thought of it. But if you all have a chance, go check it out. OUC, Oakwood College University, just pull it up and you'll find it. It's Dr. Lola Moore Johnson, and she was fantastic. Well, our time is up. There's really no, actual time, but so we could do this for 3 hours, but maybe everyone won't want to spend time on that in the future. But this was a fantastic conversation, as I knew it would be. Ebony has said that she would love to have a conversation with the three of us. So next time she can jump on, maybe you can jump on too, and we can have another exciting topic. And we will have that next Tuesday at 6:15 here on this channel. Also, it's supposed to be streaming on Facebook as well, so we'll see if that worked out.
I did not know that. I'm so glad I didn't know.
Oh yeah, I just decided I figured out how to do that. It's pretty easy. So I was like, oh, let me try that and see. I didn't have time to tell you, but that's cool that you didn't know, because then you don't have to be nervous about that.
Right.
But thank you so much, Renee. Everything you said was amazing.
Oh, thank you.
I appreciate the conversation and just what you shared, the insight, the tears, the laughter, all of it. It was like a regular old time in our life. It's just what we do. Now we do it on camera. But I ask for you all to, hey, give Renee some applause in the chat.
Oh,
Maybe that will encourage her to come back again. I wanted to share one scripture that kind of spoke to me as we wrap up this topic about our challenges, our fears, our loneliness of being single. And this comes from Isaiah 49:15. Can a woman forget her nursing child and not have compassion on the son of her womb? Surely they may forget, yet I will not forget you. This is God speaking. A lot of times as single women, especially women of faith, we are trusting in God. We're in church all the time. And we look around and we feel like, God, you've forgotten me. You left me out of the favor that you've shown to other people who get to have husbands and children and grandchildren and all this other stuff. And all that comes with that partnership. And God is saying, before you were you, I promise not to forget you. And I haven't forgotten you. And even though it may feel challenging sometimes and it's hard, I'm with you and I will never leave you or forsake you. So I want to just leave that with you all and make good relationships with other women of faith that can support you. But at the end of the day, spend your time with God and read 1 John 4 and 5 about his love. Read about how he has promised never to forget us. He said, I will never leave you or forsake you. I thank you. And I just wanted to share that part of our program is discovering your purpose. And that's one of the tools that I use to help me to deal with some of the challenges and the loneliness. And I am having a Discover Your Purpose boot camp coming up shortly this Sunday. It's at a price that will never be seen again. It is 11 to 6. That's 7 hours of my time that normally costs at minimum $250 per hour. And you get this whole session for $199. And if you don't know your purpose, then we will help you to clarify that. We have a process that we go through. You'll be doing a lot of work to figure that out. But this is only for people who are on the live. So $199. Everyone else has it regularly costs $499. And I have a discount out there for $249, but for people who are on the live and shared, $199. So if you know anyone who's interested or you're interested, please, the link is in the description of this live. All of the details are in the description and you can find that there. Thank you very much for spending this time with us. I absolutely appreciate how valuable your time is and the fact that you've taken it out to be with us. I appreciate you. And I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday at 6:15, where we can talk about something else that impacts the lives of single women of faith. We appreciate you. We love you. Have a great night. See you next time. And go out, make choices that help you live, love, and marry Wizerr. God bless.
Thank you.